Hello YouTube, my name is Billy and welcome back to my kitchen. Tonight we're going to make something really good and delicious that's appropriate for this cold weather. I'm going to make puff pastry Stromboli, and that's very simple. All you're going to need is some puff pastry dough, a couple of eggs, some artisan bread, and a few seasonings, and that can vary depending on what you're gonna use with them. But to start out with, I'm gonna go ahead and get our oven preheated to 375 degrees, and I'm going to toast 2 pieces of bread. And this is pretty good artisan bread. But you could use any bread that you like. You want about 2 slices, and you want to toast that. You could use a toaster as well, but I've mentioned in the past videos that our little dog is terrified of anything and everything that beeps. So I try not to use our toaster because it makes a funny little clicking sound, and it terrifies her. So I'm going to go ahead and take these 2 pieces of bread, and I'm just going to lay those in an open rack in the oven just until they're completely dry and toasted. Okay, now I'm going to make meatballs, and then I'm going to slice them up, and I'm hoping you can see what I'm doing. Okay, in this medium-sized bowl, I'm just going to put 1 pound of pretty lean ground meat. I like to use 90%. I do not like to go higher than that. And the reason I don't is because when you do go higher than 90% lean, your meat can be very dry, and you really don't want that. I mean, there's just... Okay, I'm going to take that, and I'm going to put that right in. Wash my hands. All right. And I'm going to take a tablespoon and just kind of break the meat up a little bit just to get it loose. Eventually I'll use my hands, but you'll see that in a minute. I'm going to season the meat with just a little bit of salt. That's about a teaspoon. About a teaspoon of pepper. Alright, I'm going to do half a teaspoon of parsley. You could use fresh if you have it. If you use fresh parsley, I would probably cut back a little bit on the pepper, because parsley has a very peppery flavor to it. If you don't mind the parsley, then the peppery flavor, then you don't have to cut back. All right, now I'm going to do a little bit of about half a teaspoon of rosemary. Just your traditional Italian seasonings. And about half a teaspoon of thyme. You could also add oregano if you want it. I'm out, so I'm not going to use that tonight. Okay, and then I'm just going to get my spoon. Actually, no. I'm going to take one pretty large clove of garlic. And I find if you snip one end of the garlic, the little skin comes right off. Nice and easy. Alright, and I'm going to chop that up pretty fine. Okay, and we're just going to toss that right in the bowl. Okay, and then I'm going to take my spoon and I'm just going to firmly just kind of smash these. Oops. Mix these all together. And I'm going to take my spoon and I'm going to just smash and drag all the way through. Okay. And this is where it gets a little bit messy. When you're making a meatloaf or meatballs, to me, it's just a lot easier to just use your hands. Not only that, and especially if you're new to cooking, which I'm definitely not. I've been cooking my whole life. You kind of get a better feel for your consistency. And I'm going to work that in really well. And I want to make sure that there is seasoning and flavor in every single bite of my meatball. Okay, and I'm even going to squish it between my fingers just to make sure everything is incorporated. Okay, and you'll know just by looking, if you can make a ball and then you look at your little ball of meat and you see stuff everywhere or all the way through, then you know it's good. All right, I'm going to take one egg, crack one good firm time, and peel it open. All right, and then we're just going to bust that egg, and we're going to squish that in there. I don't know if you were paying attention and saw my egg, but I'm really partial to brown eggs, and the reason for that is I grew up on a pretty large ranch, and we raised our own chickens, and the eggs we had were always brown, so I'm just partial to brown eggs. Okay, I'm gonna wash my hands. Okay, now, while I'm waiting on the bread to finish toasting, I'm going to show you how I'm going to prepare my sauce. Now, in this little white bowl, I don't know if you can see that, but I have about an 8-ounce can of just plain tomato sauce. It's completely plain. There's no added salt or anything like that, and I do that so I can control what goes in there. And I'm going to add another pretty good sized clove of garlic. Again, I'm just going to snip one end and that wrapper comes right off. It makes it a lot easier. If you watched my video last night, you know everyone in my house is sick right now. I did have a bit of a fever last night, about 99.9, which that's a fever. But luckily, I did not wake up any sicker, and one of the benefits of working in a healthcare, you always have access to, people that can get you the help you need so you can survive through your day, which is what happened today. So I got to work. I took some Tylenol and some Mucinex, and I haven't had a fever the rest of the day, but as you can tell, my voice is suffering quite a bit, but I don't have a sore throat today. My voice sounds awful. All right, I'm just gonna dice that up pretty small. Okay. And I'm gonna put about a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. Not a lot. I don't want a lot of salt. I've just never been a big fan of it. When you grow up on a large farm or ranch, and you're used to really good stuff that's grown fresh a lot, the flavors of fresh food are amazing. They really don't need a lot extra. Okay, we're gonna take that garlic and put that in the tomato sauce. All right, and then I'm just gonna repeat my seasonings. I'm gonna do about a teaspoon of parsley, and that's half a teaspoon. That's why you saw me do that twice. Okay, and then I'm gonna do about half a teaspoon of thyme. This cold weather has really dried my skin out. I'm lotioning a lot, and that's a half a teaspoon of rosemary. And I'm just gonna take a spoon and just kind of work that together, just until it's incorporated pretty well. Okay, and we're gonna set that aside and let that kind of infuse together. Now, while we're waiting on that, I am going to get a baking pan. And you want a pretty large one. In fact, I may get my largest one out. Okay. All right, very large baking dish. I'm going to line that with foil. You could use foil or parchment paper. Either one. All right, and now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my puff pastries out of the box. I'm going to do this in the pan. If you've never worked with puff pastry before, they're already floured. So I just warn you that when you open them, expect the flour if you're not expecting it, it can be a little messy. All right, and then we're just going to open it up. Just unfold it, and then you're gonna take out this little paper which divides it and keeps it from sticking together. Okay, and I'm gonna put one up here, and then I'm gonna put one down here. This is just how we're gonna start it. It's not gonna end up like this. Okay, and it can, all right. Now, we're going to check on our toast. Let me set this aside for a second. Get my little cutting board back and my knife. Okay, now that our bread is completely toasted and that it's dry all the way, I'm just gonna take my knife and I'm gonna cut this bread into nice little strips, about 1 centimeter long or wide. And if you accidentally get your bread a little dark, don't worry about that, because that will give your bread a little extra toasted flavor. So if you accidentally leave your bread in too long, do not worry about it. Even if it's really dark, it will not give your meatballs or meatloaf a burnt flavor. It will give it a very nice toasty flavor. So we're just gonna take the bread and we're gonna put it in, and then you're gonna start working that in, like so, one loaf at a time, or not one loaf, one slice at a time. Okay, now the bread is gonna soften right back up, but that's okay. And just squish your fingers through to get it all incorporated really well. Okay, once that one's absorbed pretty well, you're gonna do I know a lot of people are thinking, well, why didn't you just take the bread and smash it up in there? It's gonna get soggy anyways. And well, you can actually do that. I think I've watched several people on cooking shows where they do. If they're making a big meatloaf, they'll just take an entire loaf of bread, and they will just add they'll just tear up the bread into little pieces. But I like to toast my bread because, like I said, it gives it a very nice toasty flavor. It's really good this way. It's a few extra steps, but it's really worth that to get that flavor in there. Okay, now, once that is completely incorporated really well, you are going to, first, you're going to get and I'm using a cast iron skillet. You could bake these as well, and that would be completely fine, but I love using my cast iron skillet as often as I can, just so I can keep those flavors alive in that little skillet. Alright, and now what we're going to do is we're going to take just a little bit of olive oil, not a lot. Maybe a couple tablespoons. Just enough to coat the bottom of the pan. And you're gonna take your meat mixture and you're just gonna work nice little balls. Now, if you have a lot of people you're doing this for, then make your little meatballs smaller. But if you have a smaller household like we do, then you can make them a little bigger. Don't make them too big, otherwise they may not get done in the middle. If you make really large meatballs, I would probably recommend cooking them at a lower temperature in the oven and baking them, but I don't want to do that. And I'm just laying these out on my cutting board. And it really doesn't take long to heat up a cast iron skillet, and it definitely doesn't take long at all to heat up olive oil. It has a very low smoke point, so you really have to watch it because it can burn really quick, and then you get a really bitter taste to it. It's not good. All right. And I got about 10. Well, I did get 10 meatballs out of that. And that's probably going to be too many for what I'm doing, but I'll find something fun to do with those. All right, we're going to take these. And just drop those right into the skillet. And we're just going to brown those on all sides and cook them until they're completely done. All the way through. Let me wash my hands real quick. Okay, now that we have our meatballs completely done and they're golden brown, okay, I've just taken them and placed them on a plate while they're cooling for just a minute, just long enough for them to be a little bit more manageable. All right, so now what we're gonna do is I'm going to get 2 egg yolks ready. I made that look really simple, didn't I? The key to getting perfectly cracked eggs is not all that tapping. You do one good firm crack, peel it apart, and then open it up. It's really simple. I hear all the time, people are so afraid, I'm going to get eggshell in my food. Well, quit tapping it. Quit tapping it, and you won't have that problem. All right, we're going to whisk that up with a fork. Set the whites aside. Okay, now these meatballs are still pretty warm, but what I want to do is I just want to slice them You probably want the center pieces just because they're a lot more tender. Slice them pretty thinly. Just be careful because your knife is sharp, I hope. And your meatballs are still pretty warm. And they don't have to be perfect. Just slice them up the best you can. In fact, I could use a different knife. There we go. That would be a lot better. Yeah. Get something with some teeth on it. It's probably been a while since I've mentioned sharp kitchen knives, but if you have old, dull kitchen knives, stop it. They're very dangerous. A dull kitchen knife is a dangerous kitchen knife. You can get some really nasty cuts and stabs that way. No good. Okay. And I'm not going to use all 10 of those. I'm just going to slice them up just according to how many I think I can fit inside each puff pastry. Okay, we're going to start with that, and I'm just going to leave that aside. Now, this is going to be a little messy, so I'm not even going to bother to wash my hands yet. Okay, we have our 2 puff pastry doughs that we had earlier, and we have our sauce that we made. All right, you are going to put the sauce down in the middle. Leave room on the edge, just in that middle section. And you don't want too much. Not yet. Hang on. Let's see if I can get you a slightly better angle. Okay. You're going to want, you see these pastry doughs are kind of like in third sections. You want to put just enough sauce in the center, but you want to leave enough room on the edges, and because you're going to fold this over. Okay. All right. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to just put as much or as little meat as you want in the middle. Don't overdo it because this thing has to close. Okay. Now what you're going to do, in fact, I may put a little bit more in that one. Yeah, that's good. Okay, now, you can use whatever kind of cheese you like. For this, I'm going to use mozzarella. And the reason I'm going to use mozzarella is because it melts really well. And it's creamy and it's stringy and it's wonderful. Okay, and we're going to do that. Now you could add a little bit of Parmesan or whatever if you want, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave it just like that. All right, that's that. Okay, now we're going to make sure I have my little paste. Okay. Now, all you're going to do is you're going to take this and just kind of make sure you flatten it out and roll that over. And then you want to tuck this inside. Okay? Tuck the other side. And then pull this one, but you want to make sure this one goes all the way over to the top. And make sure it's completely folded over. And you can give it a little pinch if you want. It's not really necessary. It's gonna stay. And you don't have, and just turn it that way, and then you're gonna take your pastry dough, your brush, and your egg yolk, and you're just gonna baste the top of your pastry dough with that. This is kind of like making your own little hot pocket, I guess. So you could add anything. You could do ham, you could do cheese, you could do bacon. You could make a breakfast one, put all your eggs and bacon and sausage and whatever you want in there. This would be really good. And these pastry dough, these puff pastry things are so versatile. I mean, you can do quick and easy desserts with these. You can do entire meals with these. You can even do beef Wellington with these. I have a video on the beef Wellington if you want to go check that out. And it's really good. It's a lot simpler than most people might think to make. That sauce smells really good. I prefer to make my own stuff as much as I can just because I know what goes into it. And I know that I'm gonna like it. And if I don't like it, well, I only have myself to blame. Okay, I'm gonna add a little extra meat in this one because this one's mine. Okay. Okay, now we're gonna add some cheese. Okay. Now, we're going to, exactly the same way we did that one. Just get that one, the long one, and then like that, and then the other in the end. Okay. Don't stretch it too much because you don't want it to rupture on the ends. Okay, and then we're gonna pull that one pretty tight just so we know it's done. And don't lift it up or stretch it too much because you want everything to stay in there while it's cooking. All right, we're gonna baste that one with the egg yolk. And the purpose for the egg yolk, it gives it a really nice golden brown finish, and it just looks a lot more professional. All right, now what you can do also, and get your salt grinder. If you don't have a salt grinder, I probably don't recommend doing this. Just get a couple, there's a little sprinkles of your coarse salt on top of that. Not much, just a couple of sprinkles right over the top of that egg yolk. All right, now these are gonna go back into the same 375-degree oven that I toasted the bread at. And since I already have it preheated, I don't have to do anything else. Put that directly in the oven for 20 minutes. And once the dough is completely golden brown, it is perfect and ready to eat. And you have a very simple, warm, and gooey dinner. Okay, it's been about 20 minutes that our puff pastry and our Stromboli has been in the oven. And I'm gonna go ahead and take that out. Put those down. And as you can see, those are quite large. So if you have like a family of 4, or I guess even 6 if they're smaller kids, you know, you could easily cut those in half or thirds and have a really good family dinner. We don't have the kids tonight because we're both sick and I don't want to get them sick. So there they are, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you.